Hello out there in the VC, everybody. I'm back with another Ringo review, and so I guess let's just get right to it. Today's album is Goodnight, Vienna, the follow-up to the self-titled Ringo album. This came out on November 8th of 74, so just at a year after the Ringo album came out. Was pretty successful. It got to number 8 in the United States, but only got to number 30 in England. And so this was kind of the same concept of the Ringo album, where Ringo just said, let's get everyone together, let's have a good time, let's get people to help out and contribute songs and play on the record. That paid off really well, gave him a big hit album. Better than that, it gave him a good quality album, probably better than most anyone expected Ringo would do solo wise after the Beatles. Caught people by surprise, I'm sure, to some extent. So the thought here, I guess, is don't mess with the formula. If it's working, let's just do it again. So Ringo gathers a whole bunch of people. Billy Preston's back. Elton John shows up. A lot of big names. Unfortunately, the only other Beatle to appear on this is John, who contributes a song and then plays on three of the songs, I believe. So no George or Paul contributions. And so yeah, let's just get into the well, here's the cover. This picture from the day the earth stood still, a 1950s sci-fi movie with Ringo's head. I don't know if they had Photoshop back then, but photoshopped in there. There's the back cover, just a picture of outer space, nothing too exciting. Here's the inner sleeve. So you got a bunch of there's John, there's Elton's up there somewhere, there's Billy Preston, and then the other side is the lyrics and who plays on what and information about the album. So let's just get into the tracks, I guess. The side one opens with the title track, Goodnight Vienna, which was a 45 off the album. John wrote it. He plays on it. He plays piano. Billy Preston's on it. It's a good opener. It's a pretty upbeat and lively way to open the album. One of the better songs on the album. I'm going to give that an 8. The second song is acapella, I guess, by Alan Toussaint, the New Orleans. I think he's a piano player, if I'm not mistaken. I know the name, but I don't know that much about his music. So it's just sort of a mid-tempo number. Not a bad song, but nothing particularly notable about it. But it's nice. I'll give it a 6.5 for acapella. Third song is Ooh Wee, which is written by Ringo and Vinnie Poncia, which was the flip side to, I believe, Goodnight Vienna, or maybe Call Me. It's the flip side of one of the 45s released off this album, and I should have written that down. Nice piano, a little bit of a music hall sound to it, a little bit of Cab Calloway vibe to it. Nice horns. It's a bit pedestrian, but it's for all that, it's still a pretty nice song. It's a bit pedestrian the first few listens, but it grows on you over time enough to warrant a 7.5 for me on Ooh Wee. Fourth song is Husbands and Wives, which is an old Roger Miller song from 1966, which was a hit for Roger, and so a country song. Even though it sounds countryish, but it's got the addition of those kind of watery keyboards that you only really heard in the 70s and never really heard after that. So a little dated, but in a good way. It's a nice touch, adds to the song. Really nice vocal from Ringo. Again, he's good at singing the country music because his voice it suits his voice. I don't know if this is a cover version that he picked to put on the album. I don't know if this might be consciously or subconsciously about him and Maureen, because I'm not sure exactly don't remember exactly when they broke up, but I know by 1974 things were probably not going rosy for him, and it may not have anything to do with that. It may just be an old song that he liked and wanted to cover. I don't know, but there's also just the slightest hint of David Gilmour, Pink Floyd sounding guitar, somewhat, Gilmore doesn't play on this, but to my ears anyway, in bits of here and there in the song. So it's a sad, downbeat song, but it's a really good one, and I'm going to give it an 8 for Husbands and Wives. Fifth song is the Bernie Taupin and Elton John contribution, and they play on it, or Elton plays on it. Snookeroo, which sounds a little too much like an Elton John song, even though it's written, customized for Ringo and autobiographical and so forth. It's a catchy song somewhat, but in the end, to my ears, it's just an okay song. I'm going to give it a 6, though. I like it. I'm just not over the moon for it. Never have been. So we go to side 2. First song is All By Myself, another Starr and Poncia song. Kind of a 50s rock and roll meets New Orleans music sound to it. Could be about Marine, I don't know. But the horns and the backing vocals save the song, because without that, it's just a pretty ordinary cut here. Lennon plays on it, but the horns and the backing vocals pull it over the top somewhat, so I'm going to give it a 6.7. And we'll move on to Call Me, which was another one of the 45s released off of this album. Ringo wrote this. Again, not a bad song, but it's just the lumbering, sleepwalking pace of the song grows pretty tedious to me. It just sort of throughout the whole song, and it gets a little tired pretty quick. A good song, I guess. It's not bad, but just sort of little boring. So I'm going to give it a 6, though, just on the general merits. Third song was a big hit for Ringo. It got up to number 3. It's written by Hoyt Axton. It's the No No song, one of his most well-known hits. He still plays it when he tours, I believe. I didn't like it then. I remember, I think I bought the 45 of this, as I remember, back when I was in 4th grade when this came out, 4th or 5th grade, and I just thought it was a silly gimmick song. My thoughts have not changed in the 40 whatever years since. I know it's probably a fan favorite. I know it's one of his big hits, one of his most well-known songs. I just think it's just sort of a silly gimmick song, and I give it a 3. And I fully understand that a lot of people are going to rate it higher than that, but that's my opinion. So there you go. Number 4 is Only You, another cover. The Platters did this back in 1955, took it all the way to number 5 on the charts. Ringo's cover version went to number 6, so he did pretty good. Again, it's an old 50s rock and roll, sort of not really a doo-wop, but sort of in that style. The Platters version, Ringo's version, it's a good song that just never moved me, either version. I can't run it down or say there's anything wrong with it or it's a bad song. All I can say is that it's just never jazzed me too much. Ringo does a good job on it, though, but I'll give it a 5 on Only You. 5th song is Easy for Me. Very orchestral piece of music. Sounds like a little bit of chamber music. Sounds like something that could be in a film soundtrack or something. It's very affecting. Nice vocals, and Ringo's pretty strong vocally throughout this album. Strong for Ringo, of course. We always have that caveat, but very good. I like the song. Gets an 8 from me. And then you have the reprise of Goodnight, Vienna to end the album, and the album sort of ends with a shout out to everyone, sort of like the Ringo album did. It's fun. It's a upbeat way to end the album. I'll give that a 7. So I don't know. This is one of his albums that I don't pull out and play too often. I don't dislike it. There's some good stuff on here. It has its moments, but it seems like it's a little forced. Seems like it's a little bit lazy, and like it was, hey, the Ringo formula worked, so let's just do it again, and maybe kind of rushed through it and didn't take the time to ensure that you had the quality songs, even though there are moments on here. There's also a little bit of a downbeat album. It's not much fun. Maybe the title track aside, but and I really do. I mean, I do really like "Easy for Me," which was written by Harry Nilsson, and I really like "Husbands and Wives." Both of those are pretty downbeat and somber songs, but it's just not. When I play it, I enjoy it, which is rarely, but it's just not a very fun album. But it's not a bad album. I'm gonna give it a 6.5 overall. And so we'll move on to the next Ringo album. I did want to really quick mention, I forgot on the Ringo album review that the flip side of Photograph is a song called Down and Out, which is not on the album. It's only on the released on 45. They play that on the Beatles channel pretty often, but a really good rock and roll, upbeat rock and roll song. I don't know why it wasn't on the album. It's worth searching out on YouTube or just finding the 45 if you're of such a mind, if you're a collector. I give Down and Out a 9, and I know that's the album before, but I meant to mention that and I forgot about it. And the other thing I forgot on the Ringo album was just to kind of comment what a great year 73 was for Beatles fans. You got, well, you can argue the quality of the albums, but you got a John album, you got two Paul albums, you got a Ringo and a George, and then of course you got the Red and the Blue albums of the Beatles. So good stuff, and kind of reminds me of last year when you had all these releases, the new Paul, then the Wildlife and Red Rose Archive Edition, then the White Album 50th, and then the John Lennon Imagine, and I'm not sure whether the last Ringo album came out in 2018 or 2017, but a very busy year last year, a very busy year in 1973, and I don't know that we've had a busy year like that since 73 as far as new releases, which of course would be impossible now, but anyway, so yeah, that's really all I got. Hope everybody's enjoying their Memorial Day weekend, and we'll continue with the Ringo albums, and we'll be back whenever I get around to it. All right, take care, everybody.